Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, animals, wild beasts, and whoever else is knocking around at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday on Facebook. So today, I haven't really planned this out and I haven't looked through what we're up to, but I decided after a quick call to Mother last week, she said, "Oh, what about your calendars? Why don't you talk about the pictures in your calendars?" So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So 2018 calendar. So there is 13 pictures in this one, including the front cover. So what I'm going to do is just sort of whiz through. I say whiz through, probably get a bit sidetracked. Just chatting about the pictures I put into my 2018 calendar, and where I shot them, why I shot them, how I shot them. For you technical kit lovers out there, what camera I shot them with. Yeah, why did I put a calendar together in the first place? I think it was a way to share a lot of my pictures with people very easily. It gives them something useful to hang on the wall for a whole year. The way it's laid out, you can actually jot down your day-to-day activities. My birthday's in there, I think, so you never forget that. But like I said, it's an easy way for you guys to have some of my prints on the wall, because really these days, unless you're emotionally connected to a picture or a place, you're not going to spend a lot of money on prints. Unless you've been part of that event, you were there, or you took that picture, you're not really going to spend possibly up to 100 quid getting a print framed up and put onto your wall. So for 10 quid, having a calendar with a bunch of pictures, if you like my pictures, that was why I set it up, really. And it was a bit of a challenge to me. It was using my pictures in a different way. And so I had to first sort of come up with the cover. And after looking through hundreds of images, it was quite easy to pick the cover. It's this picture of a young monk in the temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and it was taken on a Nikon camera. Whoops. And the reason it was taken on a Nikon camera is because my camera had run out of batteries. We'd been at it the whole day. My little Canon had run out of batteries, and I borrowed my friend's camera to take these last shots just before it got dark. So the ISO was super high. But these two monks were actually messing around on the temple, running around. It's pretty much like their home, and they do love the tourists. They play up to all the tourists, and so the hardest thing about photographing these guys is waiting for that moment that they don't realise you're there. So this lad was actually having a scratch of his knee, but the way I always try and take multiple shots of a similar scene in the moment, so you're constantly changing between landscape and portrait. You're composing things differently, because certainly in my brain I'm thinking, how do I want to use that, and how do I want to sort of frame it and compose it in a way that tells the best story. So this little lad was very small, the temple was very big, so it kind of made sense to put him right towards the bottom of the frame and just show the sheer scale. This is a cropped image. There was sky in the top of the picture, but only a little bit in one of the corners. So when I created the cover, I cropped that out so you can't see where the temple ends. The little man is at the bottom, and he's just chilling off to one side. So I made a really nice kind of plain, I say plain, it's not really plain at all, but a nice detailed but easy to read image. And because he's wearing his orange rig down at the bottom, he pops off the picture nicely, so you know exactly what the subject should be. So that was the cover. And then inside here is his mate. So this picture is called Young Monk, Angkor Wat, Cambodia. And this would have been taken in around 2013, 2014. And me and some friends did a whole motorbike trip through Vietnam, and then came back through Cambodia on our way to Thailand and then Malaysia. So Angkor Wat was one of the places I definitely wanted to go to. So we stayed there for 3 or 4 days, visited each day, and there's tons of temples that you can visit, and they're all amazing, all photographic. You could spend hours just on one wall taking pictures of all of the artwork, all of the textures. But when you find a moment when you've got a single subject that stands out from the temple, it's absolutely phenomenal. So that's what I was looking for each time, to try and involve people in my pictures. So again, much like the front cover, I wanted to sort of offset the monk within the picture to give a bit of scale. But this time I put him at the very top of the picture, chose a landscape to work with the lines that are going across the image. And this little guy was teasing me, he was jumping around, and because it was low light, it was very late in the day, to try and have a shutter speed fast enough to capture his movement was almost impossible. So I found a moment where he wasn't taking the mick out of me by going ding, 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 ding. And he was sat there and he was looking, and he can actually see across the external wall of Angkor Wat. He can see the long pathway that leads away from it. So that's what he's looking at. In that couple of seconds that he wasn't looking at me, I managed to get this picture, and that's what makes it more natural. But in all honesty, these guys see tourists all the time. They absolutely love it, and they play up to it like any kid would. So shortly after this picture was taken, huge crack of lightning, and we all made our way out. So we were actually the last ones to leave Angkor Wat on that last night. So that is January 2018, not when the picture was taken, but when I put it into the calendar. And yeah, why did I choose it as January? Essentially, you wake up on the first day of January and you're all looking forward, you're all looking into that new year. You don't know what's to come, especially in January 2020. You didn't really know what was going to come. But in 2018, it wasn't a bad year. But the idea is, when the monk has got so much space to look into the picture, it's like he's looking forward. And so that's kind of the that's the idea I wanted to put out there, that we're all looking forward to that next year. 2018, not 2020. So we shift over to India, far north India, and it's one of the roads on the way out of a town called Leh, which is in Ladakh, which is in the north of India. So these are the northern Himalayas, and this is the typical, one of the safer roads that you can drive down, or motorbike down, or cycle down, as lots of people do. Morning, Matthew Voller. He called me Chief. Man knows. So this image is, again, one of my favorites, and it'd be so difficult for you to pick up on here, but check it out on my website, or I'll put it in the links later on. But down here, there are little trucks, and right down in here, there is a very small checkpoint. This isn't even it's not even a town, but it's a North Pulu checkpoint at 1,600 feet above sea level. So as you're driving out of Leh and Ladakh, there's a few different directions you can go. But you go above a checkpoint called Kardungla, and it's one of the highest motorable passes in the world. You go up and over the top, down the other side, and as you start heading out into the Himalayas that way, you're heading towards the border with Pakistan at some stage. So they've got military checkpoints all the way through there to check who's moving. So as we go through, we have to pull into there. The driver has to get checked off, and then we can carry on. So every picture that I took in India was taken with a G1X, which is a very small camera that just hangs around your neck. It's got like a 15 times zoom on it, so not brilliant, but the pictures that come off it are phenomenal. And so standing at the top of the high pass, looking down, using the road as a real leading line into this incredible like mountain theatre, really. It's huge, it's ginormous. I'm quite glad we were there before the snow came in. So there's a little bit of snow across the top of the mountains, but just the colours, the textures, the just the shapes and the levels within and layers within this image make it one of my favourite. And you know, there are little people in there, so I still keep up my most pictures have to have a person in them to make them real, to humanise them. So yeah, we were actually on a 7-hour drive to somewhere called Disket, and later on in the calendar there's a couple more pictures from that trip. In fact, here's one right now. See, I haven't prepared any of this. I'm just making my way through the calendar. So that was February, and again, continuing on from the monk looking into the picture, you turn the page this way and you look straight down a long road. So again, it's that that idea of adventure, what's out there, where are you going, how are you going to get there, what journey are you going to take. So after driving down that road for 7 hours, seeing some camels, which I think we see later on, and then going for another 4 hours, you get to a village called Turtuk. And Turtuk is far north India, on the border almost with Pakistan, and there is nothing else there. It's almost the end of the road. So there's a village right on the edge of the Shyok River. They grow shit tons of apricots, and it's phenomenal. Amazing place, and there is tons of children, because I don't think there's much else to do there apart from grow apricots and make kids. So the kids are everywhere. So we arrived, me and my friend Danny, Lisa and Joe, my old housemate. We arrived after this massive long trip, and we went out for a walk in the evening. And you're walking around and the kids are following you and you're seeing all this amazing stuff. We had a wicked game of football, which is on one of the videos that I've got on my website. And then we carried on walking. We headed down towards the river and all the fields, and this is where we met these girls. So this image is called These Girls, and it's Turtuk, Leh district in India. So in the Around the World talk, I actually show you the pictures before I met these girls. And imagine you're walking along a path and you poke your head around the corner and you just see these girls huddled up, just having a chat as if they were at half time in a football match. There's 4 of them just standing there, and then suddenly one of them pokes their head up and spots you. And so that initial moment that you caught them all together is not there anymore. It's gone. They know you're there. They know that you're looking at them. You're taking a picture. So it's at that point you slowly walk up to them. You start saying hello. Obviously nobody understands each other, but the reason I got these pictures is because we had Lisa with us. You know, Lisa being a girl made these girls feel really at ease. Otherwise you've got 3 guys there and you're taking a picture, and it could be a little bit strange for them. But Lisa was there, Lisa was joking, we were all having fun. I initially took a picture with a different background, looked shit. So I turned them around, they got into the field, and the background was of the mountains. So Pakistan is off through the background there. And we've got different layers with the flowers in the fields. The girls are all in a great composition, and I shot quite wide and I got quite close to them. But the hardest thing about this picture was getting it as natural as I possibly could. Lisa was behind me dancing around. The girls were laughing, they were joking, they were messing around. So again, as a photographer, you're taking pictures and then you're just waiting. You're waiting for that moment to go, and then you know you've got it. You know, when you know, you know. And I was super stoked because all 4 of these girls, you know, you've got cheeky here, mischievous here, a bit skeptical, and this one just is looking right through me going, what are you doing? So a few seconds after this picture was made, the farmer shouts at the girls and the girls just run. That's it. We never see them again. So they've never seen this picture, but a goal somewhere down the line in the next few years, I would absolutely love to return to their village and take four of these pictures back, and find out what the girls have been up to, what their names are. My mum definitely wants to know their names, because mum's got a big 35-inch print on the wall mounted on metal in the kitchen. So that's a long-term aim with that picture, is to go back and find the girls, see what they look like 5 years on, and maybe make some more portraits of them. Here we go, back into Uganda and onto the River Nile. So let me know if you can see that clearly enough. But this is really early morning, like 7, is that early? 7 o'clock in the morning on the River Nile in Uganda. So each morning I would like to go out and walk around, see what I see as the light comes up. You know, people are out early, they're out doing their washing, they're out going fishing, they're walking to the market, they're getting on with their daily life. And so I would go out with the camera. I'd just take the bag and like one lens and just enjoy what I would see. I'd walk somewhere different each day to get a different perspective, or just to see completely different things. And so this morning that I got to hear, this lone fisherman was coming across the river, and he was wearing a yellow and red top. And so yellow, red and black is the Ugandan colours. And so it was perfect. You know, you've got a perfect reflection in the water, and then you create the depth with these trees here. So a lot of people are confused and they think that he's flying or it's upside down. But no, he's actually cruising across the river. And I say river because it's still a river to me, but this section is actually a big lake now. There's a dam above and there's a dam quite far below. And when I first went to Uganda, that was a raging river with huge rapids, and you could hear it all the time. So for in that in-between time, so I think it was 2012 that the dam was completed, the water rose, the rapids disappeared, and everything went quiet. So many people that used to work in the village are now having to become fishermen to make the money that they would have before. So there's a lot more fishermen on the lake. So this is actually a lake, but I still love calling it the river. So that is Fisherman, Bujagali, Uganda, and that was taken in 2017. Essentially all we're doing is we're going through my 2018 calendar, looking at the pictures that I chose, and not necessarily why I chose them, but the stories behind them, and kind of what I was thinking, what they mean to me. And this is probably one of my favorite images that I've ever taken, because it started with a plan. A lot of pictures that I take when I'm traveling just sort of appear and I notice them, and you know, they're either pictures that you can just take straight away and they're just, whoa, that was just perfect everything, or you go in and you build that relationship and naturally work the scene to be able to create the image that you see in your mind. You're not setting too much up, but you are, from a photography point of view, composition and with light, you're just moving certain things around to allow the best picture to come forward. But you're still not, you're not forcing too much, and everything is honest. So any picture that you see that I've ever shown has been taken honestly. The people were part of it, and that's so important to me. You know, I couldn't show you a picture that I've taken that I would just walk away from and not even show the person. And I try hard to give the people their picture back. So if there's a way to print it, I will print it. If there's a way to send it via social media, I'll do that. And I think I said last week, I took a picture of a guy at a garage in Uganda, and within 5 minutes of driving down the road, I'd taken it from Wi-Fi to my camera, or taken it from my camera with Wi-Fi to my phone, and I'd sent it to him on Facebook, and I only met him like an hour before. So that's how quickly it can happen. Or in Morocco, I took a picture of a guy and took a picture of his driving license. I left him my details for Facebook. He was about 80, so he wasn't going to have Facebook, but somebody in his family did. About 6 months later, they wrote to me and said, thank you for the pictures. So it was amazing. Brotherhood. I talk about this picture quite a lot, so I won't go on too much. But the black are the people, yellow is the sunshine, and red is the colour that binds all of the Ugandans together. So that's the meaning of the flag. I've put Kareem in there as he's a youngster, and at the time he was probably 13. He's now 16. And, you know, again, this was natural light. All I've done in post-production is add contrast to the image and sharpen it slightly. But this was a canvas attached to the wall, and I've just cropped so we don't see the wall. So I hired in an artist to create the canvas. That's an artist that I bought pictures of in 2009. He came in, painted the canvas. It was also really important that he painted Kareem. And so there's a video of that online, so you can check that out on my website. But, you know, the way he's looking, you know, that he's looking forward into the future, and it all seems to work out, you know, perfectly. So back home, every Tuesday, supposedly I don't go out every Tuesday, but there's an old man's biking group, and this was one of the shots that we made on Dartmoor. So it's not just travel abroad that I like to photograph, but this is travel to anyone that doesn't live in the UK, or even somebody that doesn't live in Devon and Dartmoor. This is still classed as travel photography, and it's all about people, and it's very graphic. It's all about the silhouette and the sunset. And so I saw this happening. We'd made a few pictures beforehand, and I asked the guys to line up with a few meters between them. Maybe I knew something about that back in June 2018, but I wanted to make sure there was a gap so I could get the sun setting in between them. So that's called Tuesdays, Dartmoor, England, and all I did was completely underexposed so I can create the silhouettes out of the people. You expose for the sun, and that's what gives you those strong silhouettes of the guys riding their bike. But usually we go out every Tuesday. That's currently not happening, but we are having Zoom sessions. So see you next Zoom session. Right, back out to Australia. So this is Disco Wave, and this is, I don't know, what can you see in that picture? I'll let you have a look at that for a minute and just see what you think you can see. Because I didn't see it at first, but then a friend bought the print and I sent it out to Taiwan, and then he told me about it once he'd looked at it for a while. So there's 8 of you in here. Yeah, Chris Harvey's got it. What sort of face, Chris? Gemma's got it. So I sat on this rock. So this was, so Gemma, this was actually taken on the coast in Noosa in the national park. And I just went out. The boys were surfing, and then as I walked back along the coast, I could see that there was a rebound wave. So the ocean had come in, hit the wall, and was coming back. And as the two waves met at various points, the waves just splashed up in the air. Now, Matt Volley, you're an ocean man, so you might be able to tell me what the name of that is. David Johns doesn't see a dead body, not this time. Chris Harvey sees a man's face. Voller sees a face. Morag, a dog shaking itself. Ooh, I like that. But essentially, I sat there for ages trying to get it right, and the way I got it was just keeping my framing on the area that it was all happening, turning my shutter speed up super quick, and it was evening light, so the light's coming in from this side, which gives a slight edge light, giving it great shape, and that gives that huge shadow across here. And yet, as most of you have seen, there's a really sketchy face. in there. So Matt Voller, you're asking me a question there. Is there a term for the water hitting the wall, coming back, and then splashing up off another wave? That's what I'm wondering. But this is called disco wave, and yeah, it does have a scary face. But I didn't see that until my friend said it. Till he bought the print, until he had it on his wall, I didn't notice that there was a face in there. Maybe that would have made me name it slightly differently. But that was Disco Wave in Noosa, Australia. Also in Noosa is this one here. So this one's called Driftwood. And I lived in a hostel in Noosa for about 5 or 6 weeks. The day that I moved into the hostel, there was 7 or 8 people all came in on the same day. So, you know, people move around Australia all the time, and they come in on buses, they have their own camper vans. But usually you either get to a hostel and you get on with people really well, or you're in there for 1 or 2 days and then you move along. But this is a time where everyone came in on the same evening. We were all living in the same, either in the same rooms or the same area. So that means you're all cooking in the same kitchen. And a lot of these boys were surfers. And me as a photographer, or pretend photographer at the time, I was like, guys, let's just go out together. I'll photograph you guys, whatever you're doing, and we'll have a lot of fun. So I mixed it up. Sometimes I went surfing, but a lot of the time I was just as happy standing on the beach taking pictures. And, you know, in a beautiful location, you're photographing fun stuff all of the time. And one day I don't think there was any surf, or we didn't go surfing. We went to Sunshine Beach, which is around the corner from Noosa. You walk through a national park. So literally out of the town, you're walking into a national park. The ocean's on one side, and then all the eucalyptus trees and forest on the inside. So not only a great place to live, it's an amazing place to run around, see wildlife, and just be, really. So you disappear into Noosa for six weeks of your life, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So we were all at the beach this one day. I just had the small G1X camera, rested it on the surfboard, and I knew the background was really bright, and I knew I could create another silhouette. And essentially, I just said, right, everyone go and get the biggest bit of driftwood you could find. Picked our bits here. I'm actually in the middle, so you could count this picture as a selfie. Pretty much, I set it on self-timer, rested it on the surfboard, lined everyone up, and I ran back in and picked up the wood, flicked up the V's, and that was the image. So I took 5 or 6 images, and this one has been underexposed for the silhouettes, and in post-production I've changed the colour. I think some people have bought this and they've asked, can I have it in purple, can I have it in green, blue, red? And it's really easy to change the colour in the background. My favourite is blue, and I think it looks very cool. But I do have that in a perfect exposure so you can see everybody. But that really changes, when you can see everyone, it's more personal. You know who the people are, or you don't, but you can see them. But when it's like this, it sort of lets your imagination run a bit wild, really. So that is Driftwood. Probably didn't even explain why I called it Driftwood. Besides being Driftwood in there, I kind of put together that all of the travellers that had come into that point, we all come in from different places around the world. We all float on in and end up in the same place together. And that's what I connected with Driftwood. That wood has come from all over the place and all ended up on the same beach at the same time as us. So that's why it was really important that I wanted to make that image. So that's Driftwood. This is quite a short and sweet explanation to this. And I went out to do a project in Morocco and ended up walking through Essaouira Market, which is a huge street market that has got literally everything you could think of. The whole idea with this was I walked past this guy, he was selling rugs. His son is in the corner there, tucked in the back of the truck. So I'll hold that there for a second. but the light was brilliant. The light was coming in from almost right in front down onto their faces. So it lit up all the rugs. There was amazing texture, brilliant light. And I hadn't even spoken to this guy yet. But I just sort of waved at him, pointed at my camera and said, "Do you mind if I take a picture?" And he was like, "Yeah, go for it." And he shielded his face so it wasn't too bright in the sun, which was a good move. And yeah, I just took a couple of pictures and moved in and then showed him the pictures. And he loved it. He didn't actually get a picture because there was nowhere to give it to him. But I think he was happy that I'd actually stopped to take a picture and speak to him. So I shook his hand, which you can't do now, and realised that he's got a little spud in his sock, a little hole in the front of his sock. So the one thing I do regret is that I didn't buy one of the rugs. But if he's still alive, next time I go to Essaouira, I will buy one of his rugs because they look absolutely amazing. If you remember early on, we were talking about that little North Pulu checkpoint, the big picture of the Himalayas. So if we scroll back, this one here, and then we had to pass the highest motorable pass, Kardungla Pass, and that is right at the top, and they're the prayer flags at the top of Kardungla Pass. So that was an image that I took. It was freezing cold. We didn't stay up there for very long because over 5,000 meters, even within 20 minutes, you've had a little cup of coffee and some sweets, but you can still feel that there's a lack of oxygen knocking around. So that was an image, again, using just all of the colours, all the leading lines to get right up to the very top. And actually, the way this has been cropped for this calendar, my fault, it just knocks the top off there. So that leads to the very highest point at the tip. But the prayer flags are amazing. Focusing in on this first one, because that's where all the detail is. And then your eye just naturally glides off into the distance. So full of colour, full of texture, full of energy. Yep, there's no people in there, but it's again one of my favourite shots. And there's so many pictures of prayer flags that I just wanted to create my own version of it, really. And it's really tucked in. It shows how many there are. And perhaps the only way I would have changed it is to slow the shutter speed down a bit so I could see them all flapping in the wind. But I do have quite a lot of shots of that, those colours. So that's prayer flags at Kardungla Pass in Ladakh. What we're actually doing today is just whizzing through the 2018 calendar, going through the pictures, just talking about them. There's a bit of a story behind each one, not only of how I shot it, but why. And so I guess one of the pictures that, I don't call it my favourite, but it was the start of creating some of my favourite pictures. So 2017, I went out to reconnect with a village in Uganda that I'd worked or been to before for very different reasons. I was out there in 2008 and 9 to go kayaking. And back in 2017, my whole passion had switched into photography. So I went to do my final major uni project in Uganda. And to do that, I linked up with a foundation, and I was taking all of their photos and videos for what was meant to be about 10 days. But because I loved it, I was already there for 5 weeks. So I had weekends off, but I treated it like a job and ended up just shooting for the whole 5 weeks. And one evening I was leaving the office, and they've got this area called the night school. Well, I call it the night school. It's actually an outdoor school, and they're allowed to put it there if they had a solar panel to charge the light so it worked throughout the night. So kids that want to go and study or just hang out, cause mayhem, they're allowed to go there, and they can charge their mobile phones. So there's a plug that works, there's a light that works, and a really terrible chalkboard that you'd never actually be able to write on. And they were all in there, all playing around, and I just saw this bloody amazing light incredible light. And so after about an hour of hanging out with them and just talking, David was with me, one of my best mates out in Uganda, who does a lot of photography and is a huge part of this picture, although you can't see him. And so everyone was on board, everyone was excited, cleared everyone out of the way, and we just had the one boy sitting in there. David hid behind this post and we lit him with a flash, and then we spent the next 20 minutes breaking that down in Photoshop, removing David, and then putting just the one light on the one boy. So the whole picture was just this one kid that was perfectly lit, and it was solitude. He was on his own. He was just relaxing, thinking, and it was brilliant. Let me just bring this back up. And so the way I did that was take 2 pictures. David standing in there with the flash. That flash lights the boy, and then David moves. I take an empty picture, exactly the same settings, and all I want is to be able to use that part of the picture to paint David away, so it doesn't look like he's there. In Photoshop, you match them both up, paint the part where David is, paint that away. So you, much like a scratch card, you just get rid of the bit that you don't want, and then that creates the image. After producing that one, all the kids had been watching. We did it all together, and I said to David, can you tell them I want to do this picture with all of them? And because they'd seen the process, they'd seen it on the computer, they knew what I was doing, they were well up for it. And it took a bit of time to organize them here, but it took 7 minutes to take the individual pictures. So I was about 50 yards away. I had a head torch on top of my camera because it was pitch black. The kids then knew to look straight out towards that light. I'd put them in their positions, but I didn't tell them to pose. They created their own poses. David moved along. He was there holding the flash. Pop, 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 all the way along. I took a couple of pictures of each kid. I focused on each kid as we were moving along. Lifted this lad's legs up, otherwise they would have disappeared into the dark. And then we spent 1 hour putting it all together. So how the battery on the laptop lasted, I have no idea. But again, that video is on my website, or a small clip of it is. And that is called Night School. I entered that into the Taylor Wessing Portrait Prize in 2017, I think it was. Or was it 2018? 2017. And it was chosen to be part of the top 50 out of 6,000 images to be hung up in the National Portrait Gallery in London. So although that picture isn't one of my favourites, it's led to me creating some of my favourites. It was the first time I'd ever tried anything like that, and it was just a phenomenal experience that you can be in the middle of a village where people have so little and create a picture that goes into one of the most affluent, expensive cities in the world, and people can watch it. People can look at it on the wall, people can visit it, and people can see these kids. So that's the important part for me, is where that picture came from and where it ended up. And that journey is going to continue, and that is Night School. So I think you might have just caught the end of Night School. Let me know if you've got any questions about anything that you did see so far. But essentially, I was saying that this, although it's one of my good photos, I love it, and it really made me think in a different way. It's not the favourite photo, but it did allow me to go from this to creating, or even visualising this one. So this was shot in exactly the same way, with all the different layers, and David has lit each individual person in that picture. So those two, although shot in different years, they are completely linked in the same way. So when you lock onto something that you love, and it could be a wife, could be a husband, but for me it's a way of taking pictures that makes them slightly original to me, and that's so difficult to find right now. But it allows me to see in a completely different way to how I approach certain images. But when we roll in now, so that was November, and now we've got December. So this, what have I called this one? The Camel Train in Honde, Leh district in India. So have a look at that one. So these ladies were on holiday from Bhutan, and it took them about an hour to get themselves ready to get onto their camels, which was hilarious in itself. And so if I wind back a bit, when you go over Kadungla Pass, which is where you saw the prayer flags, you travel down that huge long road to North Pulu. 7 hours later, you get to Diskit and Honde. So that is where I took this picture. The day after I took this picture is when we decided to hitchhike towards Turtuk. So we got a lift with the army for about 45 minutes, and then we picked up a new minibus to take us 5 hours further on to Turtuk, and that's where I took a picture of these girls. So they're not really in any particular order within the calendar, but those 4 images do link up. So I waited for, I watched these ladies getting ready, getting onto their camels. Then it took a further 45 minutes for them to get anywhere near the sand and to create this image. The light was fading, I was waiting, and luckily the light was going down behind the mountain behind me, so it allowed these ladies to be lit up on the right side. If they were in shadow, it would have caused a real problem to the picture. The clouds aren't brilliant, it's not the best sky, but I sat there, little G1X camera, which is very small, and yeah, just waited. And sometimes that's what you have to do. And really, I was waiting because these ladies, if you see this lady at the back, she's really well color coordinated. You know, she's got a nice orange handbag, but she was also holding up her mobile phone. She was up there on the camel taking selfies, which is exactly what I did, to be honest. So I didn't want selfies being taken in the picture. So I waited that little bit longer. And just they got into the perfect lineup, like every group had. So I knew that was coming. And then yeah, snapped that shot. And, you know, they're wise women. And that's why they're in there for December. And that is the calendar for 2018. And if you've got any questions on any of those pictures or anything I've chatted about, then give us a shout.